I see the 5D, I see my quantum field, I see timelines. So yeah, this is how I know. Now let's get started. Manifestation has become so mainstream nowadays, with so many people sharing different tips, techniques, embodying the version of you that already has it, healing to get what you want. All these things are true. However, we are always manifesting, even if we're not actively trying to. Even when we're not thinking about our manifestation, even when we're focusing on something else, even when we're sleeping. In this video, I will explain how this happens using science, quantum mechanics, life experience, and just pure spiritual woo-woo-ness because it works and it's very real. And let's face it, I love science, but science can sometimes be behind. Science explains things that already exist. For example, gravity already existed way before Isaac Newton discovered it. I will talk about energy, frequency, the frequency of emotions, subconscious beliefs, and multiple dimensions. Once you know how to manage and master these things, you won't need manifestation techniques. You will just get to manifest all the things that you actually want on autopilot. Let's start at the foundation of it all, energy. Everything is energy. We are energy. And when I say energy, I'm not talking about how tired or sleepy or how awake we are. I'm talking about the very basics of your life force. If you remember from science class, everything is made up of atoms. Here is a picture of the atom to refresh our memories. So within the atom, there are protons, neutrons in the middle, and electrons that orbit the nucleus. And hear me out on this because it is really important to understand how energy works, especially the energy in our body that we can absolutely control, because we are the boss of our body. We are the god of our body. Our bodies listen to us and take direction from us via our brains and our thoughts. I don't know if you remember this from high school chemistry class, but most of the experiments we did were focused on physical and chemical reactions and how different atoms and molecules interact with one another when they're exposed to different elements or molecules. I'll give a super basic example. Electrons can get more energized or less energized and change the state of whatever it is we are observing. So this is what happens when water changes forms from liquid to gas to solid matter or ice. The electrons in frozen water are slower moving, have less energy, so they are just closer together and don't vibrate much. And we'll get into vibrations a little bit later in this video. But think about when you're cold. You just want to huddle and contract your body so that you're as close to your core as possible. Then, when more energy is added, in this case, it's heat, the electrons get more energy, they get more energized, and they don't have to contract and huddle as much to conserve energy. So they start moving further away from each other, and then the ice becomes water. It becomes a liquid. So think about in a liquid, it flows much more freely than ice, where it's literally just stuck in one form. And then if you keep adding even more energy, let's say boiling the water, the electrons get even more and more energy that they move further and further apart, and it becomes a gas. So in the case of boiling water, the water evaporates and becomes steam or a gas. And the opposite happens when you remove energy. For example, the gas that's floating in the air can then condensate and become a liquid. And with less energy, it freezes again to become ice. You can definitely go deeper and deeper into this, but I am just a girl. So now that we've covered basic energy, let's talk about frequency. Frequency and vibrations are talked about so much in spirituality and manifestation circles because it truly is how we interact with the world. And vibrations and frequency are sometimes used interchangeably because they are very similar. So a vibration is the actual physical back and forth movement, but frequency is more of a measure of how fast the vibrations are moving back and forth. These two things go hand in hand. They have a direct linear correlation. So high vibrations also means high frequency. Low vibrations also means low frequency. For example, think of the ocean. In the ocean, there are waves, and there can be many waves or not a lot of waves in a certain amount of time. When the ocean is calm, the waves are a little bit smaller and they move slower. This is low frequency. And when the ocean is rough, think about like in a hurricane or a storm, the waves are super high and they're crashing so quickly. They're coming very fast. And this is high frequency. So tying this back to the energy and the electrons we were just talking about, energy determines frequency. When we have low energy, we have lower vibrations. We physically move slower and we feel heavier emotionally and physically. It feels like we're contracting, like we just want to lay on the couch and do nothing and take up as little space as possible, just like the electrons when they are in ice. And when we have high energy, high vibrations, high frequency, we move faster and we feel lighter physically and emotionally. Like we just have so much energy, we're jumping around, jumping off the walls, doing this and that. So that's literally like us, like in a gas form versus a solid ice form. So bringing the concepts of energy, vibration, and frequency together, it shows that what is inside the atoms changes the physical appearance outside. Now we are starting to get more into what physical manifestation is. It really is just bringing things into form, changing form, making the intangible into the tangible. When we master our own energy inside, we also master what appears on the outside. So how do we change our energetic state? How do we manage or master the energy of the atoms inside our bodies? We can do this using our emotions. Because emotions really are just chemical reactions in the body based off instructions from the brain, which comes from the brain's reaction to something. Whether it's external events or it's thoughts, memories. For example, think about when you see something bad on the news and you also get mad or sad. Or when you watch a funny dog or cat video and immediately you just get happier, you start laughing, you feel lighter. Or when you watch a scary movie and physically get chills and goosebumps and you get a rush of adrenaline. Or if you have a wet dream and your body has physical reactions to that. Even though none of the things I mentioned are physically happening in your world, in your reality at that time, you feel the emotions related to those things, to the stimuli that the brain is receiving, and you physically have a chemical reaction. Because your brain doesn't differentiate what's happening in front of you. It doesn't differentiate between what's happening in the past, in the present, or in the future. It's merely reacting to the stimuli given, whether it's good or bad, whether it's helpful or harmful. So now let's connect the dots to how our emotions relate to our energy and frequency. Different emotions have different frequencies. And the various frequencies of emotions are mapped out in what is called the map of consciousness. So the map of consciousness was created by Sir David Hawkins, who was a renowned psychiatrist, physician, researcher, and spiritual teacher. He wrote many books on spirituality and consciousness, and this map of consciousness is featured in his book Power versus Force, along with many other of his books. So I was worried I didn't want to get copyrighted by showing a picture of that. So I kind of just drew my version on this whiteboard. This is just the frequency of emotions within the map of consciousness. I highly recommend you to look it up and look a little bit deeper into it because it is so interesting and so helpful. It tells you about in the different emotional states, what is this person's view of the world at that time? So interesting. But in this video, we're only going to focus on the frequency of emotions. So for example, this shows the various emotions that we have, ranging from the lower, more negative emotions like shame, guilt, apathy, to the more positive emotions like peace, joy, love, etc. And he shows the frequencies that those emotions emit. Remember how the electrons in ice have a slower frequency and they move slower and feel heavier? Well, the low frequency equates to when we feel lower emotions like shame, guilt, grief, fear. We kind of also feel heavy. We also feel like we don't really want to do anything. We also just want to sit alone in a corner and cry. Or equating it back to the electrons in gas or in water vapor, it moves fast, it's light, it's expansive. So that is just similar to these emotions that are also higher vibrations. They're expansive emotions. So like when we feel joy, for example, we just feel so light, we feel happy and carefree, like we're like floating on air. So to put it simply, you can change your frequency and vibrations simply by changing your emotions because they have different frequencies. And it's also important to note that your emotions do change throughout the day, and that's okay. It's fine, it's normal, it's a human thing. For example, you may wake up feeling happy and peaceful, but then you have to drive to work and you're stuck in traffic. And then you start feeling angry. And then maybe you get to work and you talk to a coworker and then you start feeling happy and lighter again and more carefree. And you forget about the traffic. And then maybe you watch or read something on the news and you start feeling fear, grief, guilt, all these negative emotions again. That's totally okay and normal. It doesn't mean that just because you were angry sitting in traffic, now everything you're going to manifest is anger. Emotions are just a chemical reaction. It's an effect from a cause. So it's okay to feel these emotions, but you don't need to identify with every single one that you feel. Just be aware of it, observe it, and let them come and go throughout the day without attachment, without identifying with it. So changing your emotions really is just changing the input that created those emotions in the first place. If you want to go a little bit deeper about these emotions and how you can manage them to manifest better, or at least just to regulate your nervous system, you can watch my video about how I manage my emotions to be happy and stay happy. And before we go further, I just want to introduce myself in case we haven't met yet. Hi, I'm Grace. My channel is all about spirituality, energy, and consciousness and how they relate to our everyday life. So if you're interested in these topics, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you can get more videos like this. Now let's talk about subconscious beliefs. Subconscious beliefs are formed when something happens over and over again and it becomes a pattern. It becomes our dominant state of being, and our brains recognize it as the norm, as the status quo. And this can be traced back to emotions. A study done by Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor found that emotions last about 90 seconds, as in the chemical reactions in the body that create those feelings only last that long. However, people usually feel emotions much longer than 90 seconds because we ruminate. We bring up memories tied to other people and events over and over and over again. So that causes the chemical reactions to happen over and over and over again in our bodies. So then we just keep feeling these feelings, making the feelings last much longer than they need to. But different emotions do have different time spans or lifespans. For example, disgust and surprise are short-lived, while emotions like sadness and grief last much longer. This isn't to say that you shouldn't feel your emotions. It is good to feel your emotions as long as you're not identifying with them. For example, if you feel fear because of something, you don't need to identify with it and think like, oh, I'm a fearful person. Fear is the theme of my life. I'm always afraid. I'm just a fearful person. Like, that's identifying with the emotion instead of just feeling it and allowing it to pass. When you take the time to truly feel your emotions and understand what they're trying to tell you, it allows you to process the emotions, and the hold it has on you subsides. Like when you watch a funny cat video, for example, you can only watch it so many times before it stops being funny, or at least it becomes less and less and less funny. The same goes for heavier emotions like grief over a loved one's death or a breakup. This takes more time to heal and process, but eventually it does subside. It doesn't dim the significance of those events or emotions in your life, but those emotions get weaker and eventually they stop. However, when you have unprocessed emotions, this can linger in your body for years and years, and you can just get re-triggered over and over again until finally your body processes it and releases it. Re-triggering the emotion over and over again creates a pattern, a state of being. Your brain starts to feel that this is normal, this is the status quo, I'm used to feeling like this. It must be normal. It must be who I am. So once we are just in this mood, in this period and phase for too long that we start identifying with it, it starts to become a belief about ourselves, a subconscious belief about ourselves. And studies have shown that up to 95% of our brain activity is subconscious, while only 5% of brain activity is conscious. That means that our awake, active, aware, conscious thoughts and decision making only accounts for about 5% of our life, of our brain activity. So that's like pretty much almost our entire programming. If you think of yourself as a computer system, that is your iOS, whatever. It just keeps running in the background until you change it, upgrade it. Similar to the iOS system in computers, our subconscious beliefs are the thing running the show. They're running our system. The subconscious beliefs are the ones creating our reality, whether we like it or not, whether it's good or bad, whether it's helpful or harmful. It doesn't discriminate. It's just our core identity, our core frequency that we broadcast to the world, to the universe, to the quantum field. And this is what manifests. Also think of it like a social media algorithm. Your algorithm is so different from your friend's algorithm, from your partner's algorithm, from your parents' algorithm. Even if you are not actively searching something on social media, when you open the app, it's just gonna show you what you've been talking about throughout the day because it listens to you. And if you're like searching for things over a period of time, it remembers the things that you search for, the things that you engage with and like and repost and comment. This is your pattern. The app, the algorithm is running on these patterns even when the app is closed, even when you're sleeping. And it takes time to change your algorithm and putting in different inputs into the app to get a different result, to get a different manifestation of what you've been thinking or searching. And this is the same with subconscious beliefs. By the way, if you want to work on your subconscious beliefs but don't know where to start or how to figure out what those beliefs are, I walk through my exact steps to how I uncovered my subconscious beliefs in my Get Unstuck and Align with Your Highest Path workshop. I compressed what took me 3 long years to learn, but without the mistakes and missteps along the way, and compressed it into 2 hours to share with you exactly how I did it to help you uncover the patterns in your life. There's also 2 meditations included that help you to realize your dreams, your highest path or highest timeline, and then integrate it into your life. And I made it a super accessible price because I want everyone to be able to achieve their dream life on their highest path, on their highest timeline, without feeling like you have to force your manifestations. I'll include the link in the description. So now let's talk a little bit more about the mechanism by which energy, frequency, emotions, and subconscious beliefs create our reality, how they bring things into form. We're getting more into the quantum here. So I want to explain the different dimensions first so you know all the concepts, and then I'll give an example or metaphor using the double slit experiment. So dimensions are just different states of being, different states that things exist in. I'm going to draw a little bit. The first dimension is just a dot and a line. The second dimension adds to that. It's a dot, a line, and a plane. So if you remember like high school, I think geometry class, it talks about planes, sine, cosine, tangent, I don't know, all that stuff. I don't remember. But yes, second dimension, it becomes a plane. There's length and width. The third dimension adds on to that. There's length, width, and height. So it's more like a cube. It's not very good, but you know what? A cube, you know? Oh my god, I tried to fix it and then it got worse. Let's just call it a house. It's the 3D. This dimension is where objects appear. There's form, there's mass. This is the world we live in. You can physically feel objects like this marker. You have a physical body. You can sit on a physical chair and not fall through. When we say we want to manifest something, it really just means that we want to see, feel, touch it, in the 3D reality. In the 3D, we also experience linear time, which brings us to the fourth dimension. So the fourth dimension is time. Time doesn't really exist as we know it. In the 4D, everything exists at once. The past, present, and future exist all at the same time. However, because we are in a lower, denser dimension, we experience the time one at a time. I feel like time is more circular. So instead of this, right? Let's say you're 1 year old, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is linear time in the 3D. You have to be 1 before you're 2, and then you have to be 2 before you're 3. But in the fourth dimension, let's say you can be 1 year old here, you can be 2 here, you can be 3, you can be 100, you can be 200, you can be 9.5 years old. And you don't have to experience things one at a time. You just literally focus. This is getting a little bit more into the 5D, but you can literally focus on what you want to experience, what you want to see or feel, and that is kind of what you're able to see or visualize. Let's just go to the 5D, and I think you'll understand it a little bit more. This is one of my favorite dimensions. This is where I like to play because this is the start of higher consciousness. It's intangible, but in this dimension, you're able to observe all of the lower dimensions at once. So let me, I'm sorry, goodbye to the house. So 5D, I don't even know how to draw this. Let's do like a flower, a quantum flower. So in the fifth dimension, you're able to observe the fourth, third, second, and first dimension all at once because you have higher consciousness. You can be physically in the 3D, but also aware of the times in the 4D. You can see the past, present, and future simultaneously. You can see different timelines, infinite timelines. This is like the quantum field. Once you are aware of this and all of this, you're able to choose what you want to experience. You're able to choose the timeline that you want to experience in the 3D reality, pretty much based on just the observation of it. If you intentionally choose to experience something, let's say you want to look at yourself when you're 3 years old, that selection of the experience comes into form. So manifestation happens in the 5D, and then it kind of like you focus on it, let's say, and then it gets dragged down into the lower dimensions for it to come into form, for the intangible to be tangible. And I can tell you all this with so much certainty because I have seen my quantum field. So let me just share my story really quickly and draw it for you so you can understand a little bit. One day in the morning, I woke up and then I just saw what I realized or recognized as my quantum field. I was like, oh, this must be what a quantum field looks like. If you listen to Abraham Hicks, this is what he or she talks about as a vortex of all the possibilities. It's just something that I saw in my mind's eye. It was all just energetic. So I saw this kind of like squiggles, like energy, but I knew that this is me. Like this is just my energy, my soul. And then all around it was just black, like empty black space. But I knew intuitively that all the like space around it was just infinite. Like there's so much. Even though it was all black, it's full of so much potential, so many timelines, so many things that I could choose from to experience, even different lifetimes if I wanted to focus on that. But the way I kind of saw it is my little energy here. If I chose to focus on something, let's say I want to win the lottery, and if I choose to believe and identify as, oh, I am a lottery winner, I won the lottery, there's kind of like a light, like a star. It was like a yellow star, yellow orb light type thing that would light up in this black field and then come towards me. And what causes this to come towards me is matching the frequency, pretty much. This is what everyone talks about. Match the energetic frequency of what you want to attract. You are what you attract. But pretty much there's my frequency, my identity. So yeah, and then I just knew intuitively, instinctively, that when I hold this specific frequency, this specific identity of the person that experiences this thing, it will come to me. All this happens naturally, automatically, subconsciously, all the time. That's what I mean when I say we are always manifesting. This doesn't have to be a lottery. This could literally just be something small. It could be you want to get a coffee. Like you've been thinking, oh my gosh, I really need a coffee right now. And then maybe someone buys you a coffee. This has happened to me before. Like one of my coworkers went to get Starbucks and they made her order wrong. And then they remade the drink for her. And then she just brought an extra coffee back. That simple. And it's that automatic, really. But when you have the mastery of these mechanisms, you are able to consciously and unconsciously choose. I don't want to call it manipulate, it's mastery. Master your energy, your frequency, your identity to consciously, intentionally get what you want, manifest into the 3D, bring the intangible into the tangible. And there's actually even higher dimensions than 5D. I've actually experienced the 20th dimension in a hypnosis session. That's a story for another day, another video, because it would be long. Also, you don't have to see it. It's a knowing, it's a feeling. Everyone has this. I just think that when you sit with yourself, when you understand yourself really, really well, you are able to reach this level of intuition, of connection with your soul. One of the reasons why people don't have this connection to their soul, or they don't feel it, like of course they have the connection, they just might not believe it or trust in it, is because some people are just too busy thinking about so many of like the 3D matrix things that they're not thinking about the higher realms, or it could be because their nervous system is dysregulated and they're just too busy trying to survive, like they're in survival mode. And when you're in the 3D survival mode, very low emotional frequencies, it's very difficult to get up to this level, but everyone can do it. So anyway, how does everything I talk about come together to create our manifestations? Well, one of the most famous experiments in quantum physics, the double slit experiment, is a really great example showing how things actually come into form. The double slit experiment was done many times throughout the years by many different physicists starting in 1801, but it still gets the same results. So in the double slit experiment, a beam of particles like photons or electrons are shot through two slits. Because a laser beam is shooting light and light is a wave, physicists thought it would come out on the other side like a wave, which was true. The one beam of light passed through the two slits, and then it became two beams of light that created like wave patterns that interfered with each other and created patterns on the screen. Then they placed a detector by the slit to observe what was happening when the light was going through the slit. And when they used this detector, the light acted differently. It became a particle on the other side, creating two lines on the screen. It goes from a wave passing the detector, then became particles, solid. This is called the observer effect. This experiment proved that at a quantum level, objects can exist in multiple states at once, and they exist in a state of probability until they are observed. And hello, we are quantum beings. We exist in multiple dimensions at once. So relating this back to what we've talked about today, in the 5D, in our quantum field, there are infinite timelines, and everything is a possibility until we observe it. There are so many infinite possibilities, infinite timelines until we observe it, and then it comes into form, and then it comes into form. Isn't that crazy? In the experiment, the observation of it was through a detector, like a photon detector. But in our life as a human being, the way we do this is through our frequency and our identity. That is how we observe these probabilities. And once we match the energy of that probability, the probability becomes a possibility or an event, an actual event in the 3D. The way we observe it is through matching the energy of the person living in that timeline or experiencing the events that we want to experience. So how do we match this energy? Through our subconscious beliefs, because that is a thing that is transmitting our energy out. And once we match that, manifestation is instant. Yes, it's instant, but in the 5D. And this is where people kind of get it wrong, or they get impatient. There are so many people that say they manifest something like instantly, instant manifestation. And some people feel like they're stuck. They feel like things are not happening, and they're like, why? What am I doing wrong? The thing is, sometimes you do have that manifestation in the 5D, but you're not really doing anything wrong. It just may take time to get to the 3D, especially if there are very, very big manifestations. And to be honest, sometimes it is divine timing, because you're meant to have it at a certain time in the 3D. For example, if you are meant to get married and be with your soulmate and have a family with your soulmate, and you want that when you're 10, like you have this dream, this desire when you're 10, you're probably not gonna get it when you're 10. You know, like, even though you will have that no matter what, because that is the desire that you wish to experience, it's just not time. We have to experience linear time on earth, and if you get to have that when you're, let's say, 30, it's just not gonna come when you're 10, because you're not ready for it. You're just not meant to do that at 10 years old, you know? For example, I want 4 kids, but I can't just pop out 4 kids instantly just because maybe I match the frequency and the energy, the identity of being a mom to 4 kids. I may have it already in the 5D, but it's just not possible in the 3D. I need at least 9 months to be pregnant and then pop one out if it's like a single birth. If I have quadruplets, I could do it in 1 pregnancy, but I would still need 9 months, you know? So I hope that this helped. You can use all the concepts that I talked about today, or research it even deeper to really master it. This is not meant to help you master. This is just meant to tell you the elements that go into it and the mechanism by which a manifestation comes into form. You can then use these concepts to consciously manifest through managing your energy, managing your frequency, your subconscious beliefs, understanding your quantum field and how the different dimensions work. Once you do, life will be so easy, and you will just manifest the things that you do want on autopilot. And even if they don't happen instantly or quickly, you will have a inner knowing that you do have it in the 5D, and it just sometimes takes time to come into the 3D. Once you have this mastery, you can periodically go in and maintain or update your system, update your iOS system. But let me know in the comments if you found this helpful, if you have any questions, or if you just want to share a personal experience. And if you want to know a little bit more about how I change my subconscious beliefs to change my life, you can watch that video next.